The alarm screamed through the bridge of the UEF Indomitable. Admiral Tae-ho sat in his command chair, gray hair perfectly trimmed, eyes fixed on the main screen. He had served in Earth's fleet for 30 years, but this sound still made his heart beat faster. "Report," he said calmly. Lieutenant Sang-woo's fingers flew across his console. The young officer's face was tight with concentration. "Sir, we're picking up a distress signal. It's coming from Velros 4, about 6 light-years from our position." "Put it through." The bridge filled with a strange sound, like wind chimes made of glass. The translation software kicked in, and a desperate voice replaced the musical tones. "This is Elder Mirval of the Velrothi colony on Velros 4. We are under attack. The Kryn Dominion has broken through our shields. They are taking our children. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. They are harvesting us. Our children are screaming. Please help," the message repeated. Tae-ho listened to it 3 times before he spoke. Around him, the bridge crew was silent. Everyone knew about the Velrothi. They were peaceful beings made of living crystal, known throughout the galaxy for their beautiful art and philosophical wisdom. They had no weapons, no military, nothing but their culture and their hope in the goodness of others. "How many ships does the Kryn force have?" Tae-ho asked. Sang-woo checked his sensors. "Long-range scans show 30 warships in orbit around Velros 4, sir. They're bombarding the colony shields. And we have 7 ships in our fleet." "Yes, sir." Dr. Bora stepped onto the bridge. She was young for a chief medical officer, only 29, but her eyes held a sharpness that came from years of study. "I heard the distress call from Medical Bay," she said quietly. "The Velrothi children they mentioned. The Kryn harvest them for their crystalline cells. They use them to make weapons. The children die in the process." Tae-ho's jaw tightened. He had 2 children of his own back on Earth. He pressed a button on his chair. "Captain Haewon, report to the bridge." 2 minutes later, Haewon entered. She was a compact woman with sharp features and eyes that always seemed ready for a fight. At 34, she was the youngest captain in the fleet, commanding the assault frigate Soul's Pride. "You rang, sir?" "We have a situation," Tae-ho explained quickly. Before he could finish, another transmission came through. This one was from the Galactic Council, the governing body of most civilized species in the galaxy. A being with 4 arms and skin like blue silk appeared on screen. Ambassador Quilix looked worried. "Admiral Tae-ho, we are aware of the distress call from Velros 4. The Council has decided not to intervene. The Kryn Dominion is too powerful and the risk of starting a larger war is too great. We strongly advise you to continue your patrol route and ignore this situation." Tae-ho leaned forward. "Ambassador, civilians are being slaughtered. Children are being harvested." "We understand your concern," Quilix said, all 4 hands moving in a gesture of sympathy. "But you must understand, Admiral. Your species has only been part of the Council for 23 years. You are still learning how things work. The Kryn have been a major power for centuries. They have hundreds of warships. Any action against them would be suicide." "So we do nothing?" Bora asked from where she stood. Quilix looked at her sadly. "Doctor, I know your species comes from what we call a death world. I know Earth was harsh and made you strong. But this is not about strength. This is about survival. 7 human ships against 30 Kryn warships is not bravery. It is foolishness." Tae-ho stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, but something in his posture made everyone pay attention. "Ambassador Quilix, I appreciate your advice, but we received a distress call. We are going to answer it." "Admiral, please." "Thank you for your time, Ambassador." Tae-ho cut the transmission. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then, Haewon laughed, a short, sharp bark of sound. "Well, this will be interesting." Sang-woo looked up from his console. "Sir, if I may speak freely?" "Go ahead, Lieutenant." "The Kryn have superior numbers. Their ships are faster and have stronger shields. By every tactical measure, we will lose this fight." "Are you saying we shouldn't go?" Tae-ho asked. Sang-woo smiled slightly. "No, sir. I'm just saying it will be difficult. I've already started calculating attack patterns." Tae-ho looked around his bridge. At Sang-woo with his tactical screens. At Bo-ra with her arms crossed, chin raised. At Hai Wan, who was practically vibrating with energy. These were humans. They came from Earth, a planet that had tried to kill them every single day for millions of years. Earth had predators, diseases, earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, and a sun that radiated enough energy to give them cancer. And humans had survived all of it. Sang-woo, send a fleet-wide message. All ships prepare for combat. We jump to Velros 4 in 1 hour. Yes, sir, Haewon grinned. I'll get my pilots ready. This is going to be fun. This is going to be dangerous, Bo-ra corrected. Same thing, Haewon said, and left the bridge. Bo-ra moved closer to Tai-ho. Do you think we can win? The Admiral looked at the main screen where the distress call was still being recorded. He could hear the desperation in Elder Mirvol's voice, the fear for the children. He thought about his own kids, safe on Earth, going to school and complaining about homework. Normal things. Things these Velrothi children would never experience if no one helped. I don't know if we can win, Doctor, he said honestly. But I know we have to try. That's what makes us human. The Council thinks we're crazy. The Council is probably right. Tae-ho sat back down in his chair. But you know what? Earth taught us something that these other species never learned. When you hear someone screaming for help, you run toward them, not away. When you see children in danger, you protect them, even if it costs you everything. That's not crazy. That's being human. Bo-ra nodded slowly. I'll prepare a medical bay for casualties. Thank you, Doctor. As she left, Tae-ho pulled up the tactical display. 7 human ships, 30 Kryn warships. The math was simple and brutal. But math had never stopped humanity before. Numbers had never stopped them. Fear had never stopped them. Earth had thrown everything at humanity for millions of years. And humanity had looked at all that death and danger and said, no, we will survive. We will thrive. We will protect each other. Now it was time to show the galaxy what that meant. Lieutenant Sang-woo, Tae-ho said quietly. Yes, sir? Let's go save some children. The Indomitable's engines roared to life, and the human fleet turned toward Velros 4. The journey through subspace took 18 hours. In that time, the human fleet prepared for war. Captain Hae-won stood in the briefing room of Seoul's Pride, facing her squadron of 24 pilots. They were young, most of them in their 20s, and they looked nervous. She didn't blame them. This would be their first real battle. Listen up, she said, her voice cutting through the nervous chatter. In a few hours, we're going to face 30 Kryn warships. They outnumber us. Their ships are faster, their shields are stronger. Anyone want to surrender now? Silence. Then Ensign Hyun-soo, a baby-faced pilot who looked 16 but was actually 22, raised his hand. Captain, I have a question. Go ahead. Why are we doing this? I mean, the Velrothi aren't even human. We don't owe them anything. Hae-won walked over to the viewport. Outside, the swirling colors of subspace looked like oil on water. You're right, Ensign. We don't owe them anything. But here's the thing about being human. We help people. Not because we have to, not because they're the same species. We help because we can. She turned back to face them. You all know where we come from. Earth, a death world. The only death world that ever produced a spacefaring species. Do you know why? Because Earth tried to kill us every single day, and we were too stubborn to die. We learned to work together. We learned to protect the weak. We learned that survival means caring about more than just yourself. Hyun-soo nodded slowly. My grandfather used to say Earth was a classroom. The lessons were brutal, but we passed. Smart man, Hae-won said. Now, let's talk tactics. The Kryn evolved on a low-gravity world. They can't handle the kind of maneuvers we can. When we engage, I want tight turns, hard burns, high-G evasion. Make them dizzy. Make them sick. Make them afraid. Across the fleet, Dr. Bo-ra was giving her own briefing. The medical bay was spotless and ready, rows of beds prepared for the wounded. Her staff of 12 doctors and nurses listened carefully. The Kryn physiology is very different from ours, she explained, pulling up holographic images. They have an exoskeleton made of chitin-like material. It's efficient but brittle. Their internal organs are not redundant like ours. One good hit to their thorax and they're done. What about radiation exposure? Asked Nurse Gite. Good question. The Kryn homeworld has almost no radiation. Their sun is old and calm. They have no natural protection against radiation like we do. Even moderate levels will make them very sick. Bo-Ra paused. Our reactors, when pushed to combat levels, emit radiation that we can tolerate for hours. The Kryn would start dying in minutes. She looked at her team. If any Kryn prisoners are brought aboard, keep them in the shielded sections. And remember, despite what they've done, we treat all patients with respect. That's what makes us better than them. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Lieutenant Sangwoo had created a three-dimensional battle map. Admiral Taeho studied it carefully. The Kryn favor a standard formation, Sangwoo explained, his fingers manipulating the hologram. They put their strongest ships in front to intimidate. The weaker ships stay behind to mop up after the enemy breaks and runs. They expect everyone to run, Taeho said. Yes, sir. In the last 50 battles the Kryn fought, they won 48 by intimidation alone. The enemy surrendered without firing a shot. What happened in the other 2 battles? The enemy fought but retreated after losing 3 or 4 ships. The Kryn pursuit forces destroyed them during their escape. Taeho smiled grimly. So they've never fought anyone who stood their ground? No, sir, never. Then we're about to teach them something new. Taeho zoomed in on the tactical display. What's the structural integrity of their ships compared to ours? Sangwoo pulled up comparison data. Kryn warships are built for speed and shields. Their hulls are composite materials, very light. Our ships... He paused, pulling up the Indomitable's specifications. Our ships are built to Earth standards. We use heavy alloys designed to withstand Earth's gravity and radiation. Our hull is 3 times thicker than theirs. So we're slower but tougher. Much tougher, sir. A Kryn ship that collides with an asteroid would break apart. We'd get some dents. Taeho nodded. Good to know. As the fleet traveled, Bo-Ra made her way to the Admiral's ready room. She carried a datapad filled with research. Taeho looked up when she entered. Doctor, can't sleep? Neither can you, apparently. She sat down without being invited, which made Taeho smile slightly. Bo-Ra had never been one for military formality. I've been studying Kryn psychology. I thought you should see this. She handed him the datapad. The Kryn society is based on hierarchy and dominance. They respect strength and despise weakness. When they encounter a weaker species, they subjugate them. When they encounter an equal, they negotiate. But here's the interesting part. They've never encountered anyone stronger. We're not stronger, Taeho said. We're outnumbered 4-1. Physically, yes. But psychologically? Admiral, they don't understand humans. They think we're soft because we value art and music. They think we're weak because we help others. They literally cannot comprehend a species that chooses compassion over conquest. So they underestimate us. Completely. Bo-Ra leaned forward. And there's something else. The Kryn have a phrase in their language. It translates roughly to survival of the loudest. They believe that if you appear strong and shout loud enough, you've already won. They've never needed to develop real fighting skills because everyone always surrenders. Taeho thought about this. We need to hit them hard and fast, break their confidence before they realize what's happening. Exactly, a chime sounded. Sangwoo's voice came through the intercom. Admiral, we're approaching Velros 4, dropping out of subspace in 5 minutes. Taeho stood. Bo-Ra stood with him. This is it, she said quietly. Are you afraid, Doctor? She considered the question honestly. Yes, but I'm more afraid of what happens if we don't try. They walked to the bridge together. The crew was already at battle stations. Sangwoo sat at tactical, his hands steady on the controls. Haewon's face appeared on a screen. She was in her fighter, ready to launch. All ships report ready, Sangwoo said. The main screen showed the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The swirling colors of subspace snapped away, replaced by the black of normal space. And there, hanging in orbit around a beautiful blue and green planet, were 30 Kryn warships. They were sleek and dark, built like blades. Weapon ports glowed red along their hulls. They were impressive and terrifying. The Kryn commander's face appeared on screen. He looked like a large insect, with multiple eyes and mandibles that clicked when he spoke. "I am Vex Prime Commander Thalarian. You have entered a Kryn military operation. Retreat now, or be destroyed." Teho stood and looked directly at the screen. When he spoke, his voice was calm and cold. "This is Admiral Teho of the United Earth Fleet. You are attacking civilians. You are harvesting children. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately, or we will remove you by force." For a moment, there was silence. Then Thalarian began to laugh. It was a horrible clicking sound. Behind him, other Kryn could be heard joining in. "7 ships!" Thalarian managed between laughs. "The primates send 7 ships against 30. This is the funniest thing I have heard in decades." Teho's expression didn't change. "Last warning, withdraw now." "Or what, little human? You will throw rocks at us?" More laughter. Teho looked at Sang-Woo and nodded once. "All ships," Sang-Woo said, into the fleet-wide channel. "Battle formation. Engage." The human fleet surged forward, and the laughter stopped. The Kryn responded exactly as Lieutenant Sang-Woo predicted. 15 warships broke formation and moved forward in a wedge pattern, their standard intimidation formation. They expected the human ships to see this overwhelming force and retreat. Instead, Captain Haewon's squadron accelerated directly toward them. "Soul's Pride leading attack run," Haewon said into her comm, her voice steady and excited. "All fighters, follow my lead. Maximum acceleration. Ignore the G-forces. You're tougher than you think." Ensign Hyun-soo felt his fighter push him back into his seat as the engines roared to full power. The pressure built against his chest, making it hard to breathe. His vision started to tunnel. The computer beeped a warning. 8 G-forces detected. Recommend reducing speed. He ignored it. All the pilots did. This was what they trained for. Earth's gravity had prepared their bodies for this. Their bones were dense, their hearts were strong, their blood vessels were reinforced by millions of years of evolution under crushing pressure. The Kryn pilots, evolved on a gentle, low-gravity world, could barely handle 4 Gs before passing out. Haewon's fighter reached 9 Gs as she pulled a tight spiral around the first Kryn ship. Her targeting computer locked on, and she fired. Plasma bolts slammed into the Kryn ship's side. The shields held, but barely. "They're fast!" shouted pilot Yoonji, Haewon's wingmate. "We're faster!" Haewon shot back. "Stay close and stay aggressive." The Kryn ships tried to track the human fighters, but they moved like they were swimming through water. Their turns were wide and slow. They couldn't match the violent, sharp maneuvers the human pilots executed without even thinking about it. Hyun-soo found himself behind a Kryn fighter. He pulled his trigger, and his plasma cannons roared. The enemy's shields flashed and died. His second burst tore through the hull. The Kryn ship exploded in a bright flash. "First kill!" someone shouted over the comm. "Stay focused!" Haewon ordered. "We've got 29 more to go!" On the Indomitable's bridge, Admiral Teho watched the battle unfold. Sang-Woo called out positions and targets, his voice calm despite the chaos. "The Kryn are trying to surround us, sir. They're moving their heavy cruisers into a pincer formation." "Let them," Teho said. "Push our reactors to 120%. All ships do the same." Dr. Bora's voice came through the intercom. "Admiral, that radiation level—" "I know, Doctor. Monitor the crew, but we need the power." The Indomitable's reactor surged. The ship vibrated as massive amounts of energy coursed through its systems. And with that energy came radiation, gamma rays and exotic particles that leaked through even the best shielding. For the human crew, it was uncomfortable but manageable. Their cells had repair mechanisms developed over millions of years under Earth's harsh sun. A little radiation was nothing compared to what their ancestors survived. But for the Kryn, who evolved under a gentle, quiet star, even mild radiation was deadly. "Sir!" Sang-Woo's eyes widened as he read his sensors. "The Kryn ships near us are reporting system failures. Their crews are getting sick." "The radiation," Bora said over the comm. They can't handle it. We're creating a dead zone around our ships. Tae-ho allowed himself a small smile. Sang-woo, order all ships to vent excess radiation. Create a barrier between us and them. Hae-won, drive them toward us. Copy that. Hae-won's fighter squadron began herding the Kryn ships, forcing them closer to the human fleet where the radiation was strongest. Vex Prime Commander Thalarian watched his screens in disbelief. 5 of his ships were already destroyed, and the battle had been going for less than 10 minutes. The human ships were taking damage. He could see that. But they kept fighting. One human frigate had lost half its shields and was venting atmosphere, but it continued firing. How are they still fighting? He demanded. Those ships should be disabled. His tactical officer clicked nervously. Commander, their hulls are much thicker than ours, and their crews seem to be tolerating damage that would incapacitate us. Thalarian watched as a human fighter pulled a maneuver that should have knocked the pilot unconscious. The turn was so sharp that his own ships couldn't track it. What kind of species can survive those forces? No one answered. They were starting to understand, too late, what a Death World species really meant. The human ship Incheon's Fury rammed a Kryn cruiser. It shouldn't have worked. Ramming was considered a suicide tactic. But the human ship's hull was so much stronger that it tore through the Kryn vessel like paper. The Incheon's Fury emerged on the other side, damaged, but still fighting. Incheon's Fury reporting hull breach on decks 4 and 5, the captain reported. We've lost 20% combat efficiency. Still in the fight. Tae-ho felt his chest tighten. Good people were dying, but they were dying to save children. He had to remember that. Acknowledged, Incheon's Fury. Well done. Sang-woo highlighted 3 Kryn ships on the tactical display. Sir, these 3 are trying to break off and return to Velros 4. They're going to attack the colony directly. Hae-won, you see those 3 runners? I see them, Admiral. Permission to pursue? Granted. Stop them. Hae-won's squadron peeled off from the main battle. The 3 Kryn ships were fast, but they were running scared now, and fear made them sloppy. Hae-won pushed her fighter to its limits, closing the distance. Yoonji, take the left one. Hyun-soo, you're with me on the center. The rest of you, box in the right ship. The pilots responded instantly. They moved like a pack of wolves, coordinated and deadly. The Kryn ships tried to evade, but they couldn't match the humans' aggressive pursuit. Hyun-soo fired continuously, his targeting computer singing a lock tone in his ears. His shots walked up the Kryn ship's hull until they found the reactor. The explosion was spectacular. Target destroyed, he reported, surprised at the excitement in his own voice. Good kill, Ensign, Hae-won said. Now help the others. The 3 Kryn ships became 2, then 1, then none. The colony was safe. Back at the main battle, Thalarian finally understood he was going to lose. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The human ships were battered and bleeding, but they wouldn't stop. They just kept coming, kept firing, kept fighting with a ferocity he had never seen. All ships, retreat, he ordered. Jump to hyperspace immediately. The remaining Kryn warships turned and fled. Their engines flared as they prepared to jump. Tae-ho watched them go. Part of him wanted to pursue, to make sure they never came back. But his fleet was damaged. His people were wounded, and the colony needed help. Let them go, he said quietly. All ships, cease fire. Begin damage assessment. The shooting stopped. Space fell silent except for the hiss of venting atmosphere and the crackle of dying fires. Sang-woo looked up from his console, his face pale. Sir, final count. We destroyed 18 Kryn warships. The rest fled. On our side, we lost 2 frigates, the Busan's Hope and the Daigu's Shield. Total casualties, 47 dead, 92 wounded. 47. Tae-ho closed his eyes briefly. 47 humans who would never go home. 47 families who would grieve. Mark their names, he said quietly. All of them. They died as heroes. Dr. Bora's voice came through, tired and strained. Medical bay is full. We're using the cargo bay for overflow. I need all available hands down here now. You heard the doctor, Tae-ho said. Anyone not essential to ship operation, report to medical. On the planet below, The Velrothi emerged from their shelters. They were beautiful creatures, their crystalline bodies reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Elder Mirval looked up at the sky where the human ships hung in orbit, damaged and smoking but victorious. "They came," he said in wonder, his voice chiming like bells. "They actually came. They didn't even know us. And they came." Around him, Velrothi children huddled close to their parents, their small bodies pulsing with soft light. They were alive because 7 human ships had said no to overwhelming odds. They were alive because sometimes strength isn't about numbers. It's about refusing to let evil win, no matter the cost. Tejo stood on his bridge and looked at his battered fleet. They had won, but the price was high. Still, when he thought about those Velrothi children, safe with their families, he knew it was worth it. "Well done, everyone," he said to his crew. "Earth would be proud." Dr. Bora had been awake for 36 hours straight. Her hands shook slightly as she cleaned the surgical instruments, but she couldn't stop yet. There were still patients who needed her. The medical bay looked like a war zone. Every bed was full. Some patients lay on the floor on emergency mats. The smell of burned flesh and disinfectant filled the air. Her team moved between patients, their faces exhausted but determined. "Doctor," Nurse Gite called, "Commander Hyan needs you. His injuries are worse than we thought." Bora hurried over to the bed where Commander Hyan lay. He was the captain of the Daigu's Shield, one of the 2 frigates they lost. He had been in an escape pod when they found him. "How bad?" she asked quietly. "Internal bleeding, broken ribs. Severe burns on his left side." Gite's voice was professional, but Bora could hear the worry underneath. She examined the commander carefully. He was unconscious, which was probably a mercy. His injuries were serious, but she could save him. She had saved 32 others already. She could save 1 more. "Prep surgery room 2, she ordered. "I'll operate now." 6 hours later, Commander Hyan was stable. Bora stumbled out of surgery, pulled off her bloody gloves, and finally allowed herself to feel the exhaustion. She found Admiral Tejo sitting in the corridor outside Medical Bay, his head in his hands. "Admiral?" She sat down next to him. He looked up. His eyes were red. "I just finished writing letters to the families. 47 letters. 47 times I had to say, 'Your son, daughter, husband, wife died serving humanity.'" His voice cracked slightly. "How do you tell a mother her child is gone?" Bora didn't have an answer. She just sat with him in silence. After a long moment, Tejo spoke again. "Was it worth it, Doctor? 47 lives for people we've never met. People who aren't even human. Did we do the right thing?" Bora thought about the question carefully. "Ask me something else instead. Ask me if I could live with myself if we hadn't gone. If we'd ignored that distress call and those Velrothi children had died." "Could you?" "No," she said simply. "I couldn't. None of us could. That's what makes us human, Admiral. We can't look away from suffering, even when it's easier, even when it costs us everything." Tejo nodded slowly. "The Galactic Council is going to be furious. Let them be furious. We saved lives." The Admiral's communicator chimed. It was Lieutenant Sang Woo. "Sir, you need to come to the bridge. We're receiving transmissions from everywhere." When Tejo and Bora reached the bridge, they found Sang Woo surrounded by screens showing hundreds of incoming messages. "What is all this?" Tejo asked. "News has spread about what we did here, sir. Every species in the galaxy seems to have an opinion." Sang Woo pulled up the first message. "This is from the Kryn Dominion." A Kryn official appeared on screen, his mandibles clicking angrily. "The attack by human forces on our military operation was unprovoked and illegal. We demand reparations and the immediate surrender of Admiral Tejo for trial. If these demands are not met, we will consider it an act of war." "They're calling it an attack?" Bora said incredulously. "They were harvesting children." "Next message," Tejo said calmly. This one was from a species called the Pixari, small mammalian creatures with large eyes. "The Pixari people wish to thank the humans for their bravery. The Kryn destroyed our colony ships 5 years ago, and the council did nothing. It gives us hope to see someone finally stand up to them. Message after message played. Some were angry, accusing humans of being warmongers. Some were grateful, thanking them for showing courage. Some were afraid, worried about what a species from a death world might do next. There are 43 smaller species asking for defense packs, Sangwoo reported. They want protection from larger empires. And the council? Taeho asked. They've called an emergency session. Earth's ambassador has been summoned. And sir, Sangwoo hesitated. They're calling it the human question. Down in the ship's mess hall, Captain Haewon sat with her surviving pilots. They were drinking coffee and trying to process what they'd been through. Ensign Hyun-soo stared at his hands. He had killed someone today. 3 Kryn pilots had died because of him. First kill is always hard, Haewon said gently. I know they were the enemy, Hyun-soo said quietly. I know they were doing terrible things, but they were still living beings. I ended their lives. Pilot Yoon-ji put a hand on his shoulder. You saved Velrothi children. Those Kryn were going to kill them. You protected the innocent. Does that make it okay? Haewon took a sip of her coffee. No, it doesn't make it okay. Taking a life should never feel okay. But sometimes we have to do things that aren't okay because the alternative is worse. That's the burden we carry as protectors. Hyun-soo looked up. Is that what we are? Protectors? That's what Earth made us, Haewon said. Think about it. Our planet was covered in predators, diseases, natural disasters. We learned to protect each other because that was the only way to survive. We formed tribes, communities, nations. We developed this instinct to defend the weak because the weak were us, once upon a time. Other species don't have this. Most species evolved on gentle worlds. They learned competition, sure, but not protection, not this deep need to shield others from harm. Haewon stood up. We're not better than them, we're just different. And sometimes, different is exactly what the galaxy needs. 3 days after the battle, a ship arrived at Velros 4. It was small and old, marked with the symbols of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Na Young stepped off, looking tired but determined. She was a small woman with steel in her spine and intelligence in her eyes. Taeho met her in the landing bay. Ambassador, I wasn't expecting you. I came to see what you'd done, she said. The council is in chaos, Admiral. Half of them want to censure you. The other half want to give you a medal. I needed to see for myself. And what do you think? Na Young looked around at the damaged ships, the wounded crew, the exhaustion on everyone's faces. I think you did what had to be done. But Admiral, you've changed everything. The galaxy can't ignore humanity anymore. They can't pretend we're just another species. Is that bad? I don't know yet. She pulled out a datapad. The council session is in 2 weeks. You need to be there. Earth's entire future in galactic politics may depend on what happens. That evening, Taeho stood at a viewport, looking down at Velros 4. The planet was beautiful, blue and green and peaceful. On the surface, the Velrothi were rebuilding. Their children were safe. Bora joined him at the viewport. The last patient just left medical bay. Everyone's going to live. Good news, at least. Taeho, she said, using his first name for once. Do you regret it? Any of it? He thought for a long time before answering. I regret that we lost people. I regret that violence was necessary. I regret that the galaxy is built in a way that lets the strong prey on the weak. He paused. But I don't regret answering that distress call. I don't regret fighting for those children. I don't regret being human. The council thinks we're dangerous. We are dangerous, Taeho said. Earth made us dangerous. But they forget something important. We're dangerous to evil, to cruelty, to those who harm the innocent. That's not the same as being dangerous to everyone. How do we make them understand that? I don't know if we can. But we can show them. We can keep being who we are. When we hear someone crying for help, we answer. When we see injustice, we fight it. When we're told something is impossible, we do it anyway. Bora smiled slightly. That's very human of you. Exactly. Below them, A group of Velrothi children played in the streets of their colony, their crystalline bodies glowing with joy and life. They were alive because humans from a death world had refused to let them die. And across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, other species watched and wondered. What would humanity do next? The Galactic Council chamber was ancient and impressive. It sat on a neutral space station orbiting a dead star, built thousands of years ago when the first civilized species began working together. The chamber was enormous, with seats for representatives from 300 species arranged in circles around a central platform. Admiral Tae-ho stood on that platform feeling very small. Ambassador Na-young stood beside him, calm and ready. Around them, hundreds of alien faces stared down. Some looked curious, some looked angry. Some looked afraid. The council speaker, a tall being with 6 arms and skin like polished wood, addressed the assembly. We gather to discuss what has been called the human question. 3 months ago, 7 human warships engaged 30 Kryn vessels in direct violation of Council non-intervention protocols. The result was significant casualties on both sides and the destruction of 18 Kryn warships. A Kryn representative stood, his mandibles clicking furiously. It was an unprovoked attack. The humans should be expelled from the Council and forced to pay reparations. Before Tae-ho could respond, a Velrothi elder rose. His crystalline body glowed with soft blue light. Unprovoked? Our children were being harvested. We called for help, and only the humans answered. They saved innocent lives while this council debated. The chamber erupted in argument. Species shouted at each other in dozens of languages. The speaker pounded a resonator, creating a deep sound that silenced everyone. Order! We will have order! The speaker turned to Na-young. Ambassador, does humanity have anything to say? Na-young stepped forward. She was tiny compared to most of the beings in the chamber, but her voice carried clearly. The council asked us to explain our actions. Very well. Humanity did what we have always done. We answered a cry for help. This is not complicated. You violated protocols, shouted a representative from the Gom species, a race of methane breathers. We saved children, Na-young said simply. If your protocols prevent that, then your protocols are wrong. The chamber went silent. No one spoke to the council like this. Na-young continued. Humanity comes from a world unlike any other represented here. Earth tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Predators, diseases, disasters, radiation. Our planet threw everything at us. We survived because we learned one critical lesson. We protect each other. Always. She pulled up holographic images of Earth. Volcanoes erupting. Hurricanes devastating coastlines. Predators hunting. This is a death world. This is where we come from. It made us strong, yes. But more importantly, it made us stubborn. We don't abandon people who need help. We can't. It's literally in our DNA. Admiral Tae-ho took over. The council can debate, discuss, and delay. We understand that. You have procedures and protocols built over centuries. But while you debate, people die. We won't accept that. So you'll just ignore council authority? The Kryn representative demanded. No, Na-young said. We're proposing something new. We call it the Death World Covenant. She displayed the terms on screens around the chamber. Humanity will respond to distress calls from any species. Humanity will not seek territory or resources as payment. Humanity will share combat and survival training with allied species. Humanity accepts responsibility for its interventions. We're not asking for permission, Na-young said firmly. We're informing you of our principles. You can censure us, sanction us, even expel us from the council. We'll still answer when someone calls for help. That's what makes us human. The chamber exploded in chaos again. Some species were outraged. Others were thoughtful. The smaller species, the ones who lived in fear of larger empires, whispered among themselves with something that looked like hope. Then, something unexpected happened. A door opened that hadn't been used in decades. An old warrior walked in, his scales scarred from countless battles. He was Thrax, a species most thought extinct. I am Commander Daewoon of the Thrax, he said, his voice rough. My species evolved on a world similar to Earth. We understand what it means to come from hell and survive. We recognize the humans for what they are, protectors who cannot be stopped by fear or protocol. He turned to face Na Young and Tae-ho. The Thrax pledged to join the Deathworld Covenant. We will stand with humanity. A small creature, barely knee-high to a human, stood up. The Pixari join as well. The Kryn destroyed our colony ships, and the Council did nothing. We need protectors who will actually protect. The Velrothi join. Elder Mirval's voice chimed through the chamber. One by one, smaller species stood and declared their support. Within an hour, 43 species had joined the Covenant. Not the major powers, they were too proud or too afraid. But the small ones, the forgotten ones, the ones who needed protection. The council speaker looked overwhelmed. This is unprecedented. The council must deliberate on this development. You do that, Na-young said. We have work to do. 6 months later, Captain Haewon stood in the training facility on Earth's moon. Around her were pilots from 15 different species, all trying to learn human combat tactics. Most of them were struggling. Again, she shouted. Pull the turn harder. A Pixari pilot gasped through his comm. Captain, the G-forces, I can't. Yes, you can. Your body is stronger than you think. Fight through it. The pilot gritted his teeth and pulled the turn. His small ship spun through space in a maneuver that would have been impossible for him a month ago. When he completed it successfully, he let out a whoop of joy. Haewon smiled. They were learning. It was slow, and they would never match human abilities. Their evolution hadn't prepared them for Deathworld conditions. But they were getting better. They were learning that courage matters more than comfort. In the medical facility on Mars, Dr. Bora trained doctors from allied species. She taught them about redundant systems, about how to treat injuries in harsh conditions, about thinking creatively when resources were limited. On Earth, medicine developed in the worst conditions, she explained to her class. We learned to save lives without fancy equipment because we had to. This knowledge can help all species. A Velrothi medical student raised a crystalline hand. Dr. Bora, why do humans help us? You gain nothing from this. Bora thought about the question. We gain something very important. We gain the knowledge that we're making the universe better, that children go to sleep safe, that the weak are protected, that cruelty doesn't win. She paused. That's not nothing. That's everything. Lieutenant Sang Woo, now promoted to commander, worked with military strategists from the Thrax. Together, they were developing new tactics that combined human adaptability with Thrax battle wisdom. Your people fight with rage, Daewoon observed. Controlled rage, but rage nonetheless. Earth taught us to fight hard, Sang-woo agreed. When everything is trying to kill you, half measures don't work. The galaxy is not used to this. They fight for territory, resources, honor, but you fight for others. This confuses them. Good, Sang-woo said with a slight smile. Confusion is a tactical advantage. Admiral Tae-ho sat in his office on Earth, looking at reports from across the galaxy. The Deathworld Covenant now had 127 member species. The Kryn Dominion, humiliated by their defeat, had ceased their expansion. Several other aggressive empires were reconsidering their strategies. But new distress calls arrived every day. Pirates attacking trade routes, slavers raiding colonies, natural disasters devastating settlements. Each call was a request for help. Na-young entered his office without knocking, as usual. You look tired, Admiral. I am tired, but the work isn't done. She handed him a datapad. 17 new distress calls this week. The Council is still debating whether our interventions are legal. Tae-ho looked at the list of calls. Civilians in danger. Children crying for help. People who needed someone to care enough to risk everything. Plot courses for all 17 locations, he said. Assemble the fleet. All 17? Tae-ho, we don't have the ships. Then we make do with what we have. We always have. Na-young smiled. You know the Council will complain. Let them complain. We have more important things to do than worry about bureaucrats. 1 year after the Battle of Velros IV, Fleet Admiral Jin A made a broadcast that would be remembered for generations. She stood in front of Earth's flag, her uniform perfect, her expression calm and strong. To all species of the Galactic Council, she began, humanity has heard your concerns, your fears, your protests. We understand them. We do not seek to dominate the galaxy. We do not seek conquest or wealth. We seek only to honor what Earth taught us in our millions of years of struggle. She paused, looking directly into the camera. When someone calls for help, you answer. When someone threatens the innocent, you stand between them. When someone says it is impossible, you prove them wrong. This is what it means to be human. The Death World Covenant stands. We will answer the calls you ignore. We will fight the battles you fear. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. Not because you ask us to, not because it benefits us, but because we cannot be human and do anything else. You don't have to like us. You don't have to trust us. You just have to remember. When you need someone who will run toward danger instead of away from it, when you need someone too stubborn to quit, when you need someone who believes compassion and strength can coexist, you know who to call. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, beings from hundreds of species watched it and drew their own conclusions. 5 years later, the Death World Covenant had grown to include species from every corner of the galaxy. Admiral Hei-Wan commanded her own task force. Dr. Bo-Ra headed the Galactic Medical Corps. Commander Sang-Woo trained defenders at the Academy on Earth's moon. And Admiral Tae-Ho, finally retired, taught at the Naval Academy. His students came from dozens of worlds, all learning the same lessons. Strength without compassion is tyranny. Compassion without strength is futility. Together, they can change everything. On a quiet evening, he stood at a viewport looking at Earth. The death world that made humanity strong. The harsh teacher that created a species too stubborn to let evil win. A student approached, a young Velrothi whose parents had survived the attack on Velros IV. Admiral Tae-Ho, may I ask you something? Of course. Do you think we made the galaxy better? Tae-Ho thought about all the children sleeping safely, the colonies protected, the weak defended. He thought about the 47 humans who died at Velros IV, and the thousands more who had fallen since, protecting others. Yes, he said simply, we're making it better. One answered call at a time. The galaxy was safer now, not because humanity was the strongest, but because humanity refused to look away when someone needed help. That was the Death Worlders' might. Not the strength to destroy, but the strength to protect. Not the power to conquer, but the power to care. And across the stars, whenever a distress call went out, everyone knew. The humans would answer.